Okay, let's continue creating our mockups and wireframe here. First thing in this video, I'm going to be focusing on creating our components, some primary components and higher level components, which we are going to be building using the primary components. So the high level ones are app specific components here, like the register component here, verify. You can look at these as just a page with a single component, much like if you're a React developer or any UI system that has components, and these components are comprised of smaller components. So normally how it's done, there's a second page that all the components are created. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make everything in a single page so it's easy to see and work with, especially in a tutorial-based video like this one. So I'm going to go to page 1 and paste our button component that we created earlier. First off, let's actually, before begin creating our components, let's figure out what we need. So we need the primary, from the list of primary ones, we need a text input, a button, which we already have, a text area, which is these larger ones, and a combo box, which is this input language. We can create these components one by one, but for the class that I'm teaching this for, which is the Udemy AWS CDK Serverless Fullstack class, that one I used shadcn UI, which is a UI library system that allows developers to copy paste components, and that system has a Figma UI somewhere on the web for that. So if I just do shadcn UI, so I went to the so if you didn't know where I went, so under the home directory here, if you click there, and on the bottom there's a explore community button. So click on the explore community, this tab will open up, and in this tab I've typed in shadcn UI, which brought me these 4 options. I haven't pressed enter yet. And the last one seems to be the latest one, which is 2024. So I'm going to click on that and I'll say open in Figma. And because this is a purchase version, it will ask me where do you want to open it. But for you, most likely it won't open this up. So I'll select the company. All right, so this is what you will see. On the left, you'll see it has a cover, kind of like a cover page, and then the components and primitives. So under primitives is where you'll see the button, radio group, slider, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate and copy these and paste it in our main project. So let's start with the button. I'll come over here, select the button, and you can see these are already made into components. So I'll just copy this and paste it in our project here. And we'll modify these to suit our needs. So I'll just move this over here. And this section, I'll name this components. All right, let's move the button. Let's move everything one by one, and I'll come back in and update them. So next up, we need a text input field, which is this one. And apparently there are 2 types here. There's an active and an input. I'll just copy the input one. Let's paste it back in our main project. Okay. And we need a text area, which I don't think we will have a text area here. There's a label. Let's copy that, even though it's just a text, but that's fine. Oh, I'm in the prototype mode, which makes it difficult to work with when we're designing stuff. So click on the design mode if you're in prototype mode to make it simpler. Now we need the combo box, which I believe should be under our components. And as I mentioned earlier, if you remember, most proper design systems have a light mode, dark mode. As a developer, I don't think you need to even bother with this at all, except maybe if you want to create the placeholders, maybe design the system in such a way that your components are built so it can have a dark mode, but you shouldn't sit down and waste time on creating dark mode or light mode. Okay, let's check out, see where the where the combo box is, if there is any. There you go. There's a combo box and it's right here. So I'll just copy this. I'll copy both actually. This one is open and one is collapsed. So let's paste it over here. Okay, so these are our primary components. Let's start using them and modifying them. First off, our button, we could see it has the outline primary and secondary. It's not calling it outline, it's calling it primary and secondary. That's the proper naming system usually you will see with these design systems. I'm going to modify this, so I'll copy this and bring it over here, and I'll paste this loading indicator. I'll make the size smaller, so it's 12 by 12. There you go, and move this over here. I'll do the same for secondary. Change the color to black. And in fact, I can change the color of the stroke as well to our black, so it's much more wireframey. Now with this, we are missing the hover, but I'm not going to, let's just do it. I said I was not going to bother doing it, but might as well just do it. So I'll just duplicate this, change the background to gray, and change the background of this to black. All right, and this is called primary hover. And let's quickly create the interaction. It doesn't take too much time. So over here, this is on tap or while hovering, and back to this. And from here back to this one, when mouse leaves, back to normal. Great. Okay, we're done with our button. Next up is our input field here. For our input, what I'm going to do, also before we continue, the button, I'm going to double click on this. Well, first off, we need to make sure to see an instance version of this button while we're testing and making changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all of these down, and I'm going to create an instance of this button. So with a button, it's a bit tricky. If we want to create an instance, you cannot duplicate this whole button, essentially components with multivariants. You can copy each variant here. If I just copy this and paste it here, this now is a variant of the button. And you can see on the right, we have the primary, secondary, we have all these buttons. Or the other way is when you select assets, and on this top, you switch from all libraries to local components. You can see we have the button here. You can drag and drop and use it like that as well. So I wanted to double check to see if it has a component property to change the text. No, it doesn't. So let me select the text here and click here and create that property. And I'll attach the property for the rest of the variant to the same text really quickly. Okay, we're done. So over here, let's give this a try. Testing. Yes, it's working. Perfect. And now for the loading indicator, now we need to create this property, show, or just say is loading, and attach the rest of the circles to the same property, which apparently it already is. So let's test this out. Is loading. Okay, let's change this to hover. Is loading. Yes. So our button is ready. Let's move on to our input. For our input, what I'm going to do and switch back the tab to layers, not assets. For the input, I'm going to drill down to the frame, and I'll switch the stroke colors. And let's see where the stroke is applied. It's applied on the top level. And this is a bit troublesome because I want to add a label on top of this. So what I need to do is I'm going to duplicate this input like this. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to detach instance. So with this detached instance, you can see you have an input. Now we have this frame for the text. Okay. Now I'm going to come here and this label and just grab this text, copy it, bring it back to input, paste it here. Well, actually, I'm going to paste it up here like this. And select these two and then group them. And then I'll call this text input. Let's come back over here and change the stroke to black because it's much more easier to work with. Same with email. Email, well, I could just set this to gray. All right, so with this group selected, we can create an auto layout and add some spacing in between the text and our guy here. And make this not a fixed width, but a fill container. And the container, which is this top level, I'll just resize it to something fixed. It doesn't matter. With this, I'll delete the input field here and make a component out of this. Now let's add the properties. So we have the label here. I'm going to call this a label. I'll add the text label to it so it's easy, and I'll create the component label, value label, that's fine. And then come over the email here and create a new property called just text and value text, create property. The value I wanted to say text, but that's fine. Let's test this text input. I'm going to duplicate this, move it down as an instance, and label I'll say email, and text I'll say enter email. Perfect. So if you want to, you can see this grayed out is a placeholder. If you really want to kind of make it very proper and whatnot, so what you have to do here is select this text input, create a variant, and because this is a bit messy, let me increase the variant container size. I'll select this label, move it over here, and change the color of this text to black. Right, and then this variant is now going to be called touched. Why do I say touched? Because when you have a placeholder, usually it's grayed for the text, and when the text is entered by the user or some other means, the color changes from grayed out text to dark gray to indicate that this is not a placeholder anymore. In fact, the gray that we use here, it's a bit too dark. So what I can do is make it a bit more obvious, but I think this is fine for us. Anyway, so the variant, so I have this property 1, I'll just say mode. So we have the touched mode and we have the default mode, which I'm trying to rename it here, default, or I'll say placeholder. Great, so let me adjust the size of this so it's nice and organized. And I'll move the email here. Let's get rid of this label. Now the email will have a placeholder type and a touched. You see the email, enter email is in the case where you have email at something.com. All right, so we got our text input. Let's create our text area really quickly. All right, let's come over here and rename this to text area. And what I'm going to do is essentially the same thing. However, this little input field, not the text, the section is going to fill all the way, both vertically and horizontally. So that way, if I come here and make this bigger, it also increases in size. In fact, just to distinguish between the two, I'm going to do that just like this. All right, and I'll increase this purple container so it's obvious. There you go. We got our text ATM area, also created the primary component, and you can give it a try. We can just copy and paste here, or I can show you a different way of doing it. I can copy this text input, paste it here. And over on the right, you see this area where it says text input. That's essentially telling us this is the component that it's representing this instance. You can switch this component to something else. So I can click on button here. This switches to button, and it tries to take the properties that are similar and apply to that. And in our case, I just want a text area, which you can see it applied the attributes, and it has placeholder and touched as well. So there you go. So we have text area almost for free. And let me delete this old button. We don't need it anymore. Let's go to our combo box. Combo box is actually quite a lot of work to get it up and running. It's much easier if you actually code this rather than do it in here. So we're done with our primary components. Let's start creating our higher order components or higher level components. And I'm going to start with this translation card here. So let me copy. And actually, before doing that, there is one more component from Shati and I want to copy, and that is the card. And I'm not sure, there you go. It's under components card. So let's double click. And copy this, come back over here. And I'm going to use this card to create our translator object here. So let me select this and go to design. I'm going to remove the drop boxes actually, and I'm going to make the stroke black. And just basically switching all the colors to our primary colors so it's easy to work with. Now we have the text here, which I'll say, which is under label. So I'll just move this out. Sometimes it's easier to work with if you copy a component and then detach the instance. And once you detach, you can see that there are, it's easier to see what components are reused across the board for different parts. So we don't need these buttons, of course. We don't need these inputs. And this label here, you can see one is a component, one is not. I'll just detach all these instances and move everything just directly underneath the frame. There you go. And this text, we already have a couple of styles. I'll select H2 for this. And for this, I'll select body. And our body is too large for this case. So we need to create a new section here. So let's reduce this down to 0 for the spacing and reduce the size to, let's make it 14. All right, I think this is good for our card. Now let's create the placeholders. So this is going to say essentially English to Spanish. And this is the input text. And we will have 3 more items, which this is the date and this is the timestamp. And in fact, I'm going to make the color for everything here black. So these guys. Instead of gray, just black. There you go, simple enough. Now I will delete this card here and make this our translator card. In fact, let me undo this because we're going to reuse this card and call this translator card. And before creating new variants, let me double check and reduce the padding on the left and right. Okay, this is fine, and reduce the spacing to, let's say, 8. Okay, so I created a component out of this. Now let's come back and start adding some properties. So this is the translation languages. Or I'll just say languages. Or language, that's fine. Create property, and I'll create one more property, and that's it. I'll just say this sentence. Okay, that's plenty. Now let's create a couple of variants. Let's create 4 variants. We'll create 2 at a time. So this is a regular version. Now I need a version that if user hovers over or user selects it. So I'll reverse the coloring. And to reverse the coloring, first I'll select red for the fill, and then for everything else I'll come and make it white, and go back to the fill and make it black. So that's how you should reverse it. If you set the fill automatic to black, it just kind of, you lose all that information. So you need to do it that way. So let me create the hover effect as well. I come over here, duplicate, move this here. And same with this, duplicate and move it over here. Both of these have a stroke of white. I can select both and make the stroke black. We don't need to do that. So the hover for this guy, we can just make the fill gray, like this. And for this one, the fill, we can make the hover some other color. So that's why we need to go to our local variables here and add one more gray. Let's create a variable color light gray. And I'll paste this value and come over here and do this. Maybe in between. There you go. So that's a light gray. And instead of black, I'm going to create another one that's color, and let's call this dark gray. And I'll start with the black, and I'll make the color a bit lighter, like so. Okay, so with that, I'll come over here, select my fill to be light gray, and over here, I'll select the fill to be dark gray. Okay, now let's create the hover effect. Go to prototype and move this over here. Well, before that, let's do the proper naming. Go to design mode. The property is just style, and this is default. This is default hover. The bottom one is selected, and this is selected hover. All right, let's go to prototype. From here, move to this, and we'll say not on tap, but while hovering, change this to default hover. Good. And from here, back to this, and this is mouse leave. Same with this, I'll come over here. This is on while hovering, and from here back to the original one when mouse leave. Great, we have our translator card as well. We can do a quick test. I'll copy one of these, bring it back over here. In fact, for the testing area, let's do a quick a testing ground. Let's say this is our frame for testing stuff. And I'll paste our component here. I'll delete this one. And in fact, you can copy the combo box as well, or any other components to test stuff here. So I'll paste it here as well. Let's click on my frame and press play. Okay, if I mouse hover, that works. If I click on this, that works as well. And I'll duplicate this, move over here, and set the style to selected. Let's try this one more time. And let's just do this proper testing so we're not presented with that small screen. And we can leave this open. It will automatically update as we make changes to it. All right, so however this works, click on this, opens up, perfect. Everything works fine. All right, so we're done with our translator card. Let's continue and create the register card and verify code card, these guys. So I'll just copy this, paste it here just for reference. And I need to copy the whole thing. It might be better for Figma if I mouse over somewhere and then press paste, so it pastes over right there, but that's fine. We'll just move things around. But if Figma engineers you're listening, that might be a suggestion you'd like to consider. So let's create our register button here. I'll just detach this instance and move over here. And let's move this. Let's leave this over here and change the text this to H2. And this should say register. And this text should say enter email and password to create an account. All right, so we're going to get rid of these guys and replace them with our input text here. So I'll just come over here, copy this, come over here and delete these guys, but I'm going to delete them directly in the input. Select frame, paste. There you go. So this is, and we're going to fill the container. And our container is going to fill our box. So we have email. Let's duplicate. Come over here. This one will say password. And this one, retype password. Perfect. And all of these will have the placeholders, not touched, but placeholders. And this, the top one, input selection, instead of email, we'll say, instead of the text, we'll say enter email. And this one, enter password. And this guy will say re-enter password. And instead of these two buttons that are placed here, and this is fixed, so I'm going to make this fail container. I will grab my button, and the easy way is to go to assets here. Just grab the button, drag and drop over here, and we're done. I'm going to delete these cancel and other buttons like this. And come over here, select the button here, and turn is loading off. Text should say register, and type is primary. Great, and let's change this auto layout to push to the left side. All right, so we got the register as well. We can delete this place, this reference, and I'm gonna name this register card and create a component out of this. And we can test it out in our sandbox here, or testing ground. All right, let's go over here. And we can see we got these working. This is working nice. However, our text input boxes, they might not have the white color here. So let's double check. Let me double check this, make sure they are actually white. I'll click the register card and I'll make the fill light gray. There you go. So I can see now the input boxes are not actually white. So what I'll do is I'll come over here under local variables. I'll come over here and go to each individual text input and create a fill of white. Okay, now let's check our register. Yep, that looks much more better. And I'll come over here and change this text to black as well. All right, so we got the register card as well. Let's continue with the rest. So with the register card, in fact, I'm going to make the fill white because we already have a stroke. We don't need to bother with the rest. Let's duplicate this. Let's duplicate and move the register card over here. And let's call this confirmation card. But actually before that, let me test one thing really quick with the register. If I expand, yes, that works perfectly well. All right, so let's go over to register and call this verify email. And then enter code you received in your email address. And I'm gonna delete this. And for the password, I'm going to come here and say verification code. And here, enter verification. And for the buttons, you can duplicate this and change this primary to secondary and call this cancel. And this one, confirm. And the problem is I didn't detach this. That's why the changes are applied to both of them. So I'm gonna cut this part and redo what I did. So let me undo everything. Okay, so I redid it and I copied, I detached it and I copied it and made the changes. So with that, next up, there's one more card, two more cards we need to create, and those are very close to the register card. So let me duplicate and this time make sure I detach it. So this is detach. This is going to be called the login card. And this is login. Enter email and password to login. And I'm going to say login for this button. All right, I just added a line here, and I'm going to duplicate this login, move this on the bottom, or move this line on the top. And if it's difficult to do this, I'll just do it in the outline view. Like so, and come here and switch the text to register. So the login component will have a button that instead allow users to go to the register view if they don't have an account. And for that, I need to add a text here. And that should be not there, but and I'm going to group these, create an auto layout, and reduce the size, the spacing in between. 5 is too little. Let's make this 10. So it's easy to read. And say register if you don't to create it. Register to create an account. Okay, so that's our login. And we'll create a component out of this and duplicate this. Move this over here and create the logout version. So detach instance, logout, and this one, click logout, and I'll just remove. I'll just add. I won't do anything fancy here. I'll just come over here and say logout, and maybe create a placeholder. Instead of these two, I'll just paste it over here, get rid of these input boxes, and this is username and user ID. Okay, let's get rid of all of these, and this one is called logout card. And let's create a component out of this. Great, so we got most of the elements that the high level elements. We got one more element to create, and that is our navigation bar here. And let me copy this and bring it over here. Navigation bar is, perhaps I left it towards the end because that's the trickiest one. And this one, let's come over here and let's double check. So this is H1, this is great. We have our avatar. In fact, let me go to Shatian and grab a avatar here. I think it should be under primitives. There you go. We have an avatar here. I'll copy this, bring it back here, paste it right here. And instead of CN, what I'm going to do, I want this avatar to have two modes, one for logged in, one for logged out. And for logged in, we can use this whatever image of Rick and Morty here and here. I will just go to my plugins here under material symbol. I will search for profile and select an icon that closely resembles a profile. It's right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. Instead of placeholders, CN, delete this, select person, and move it over here. Okay, so we got two versions, and this is mode. This is logged in. And this is logged out. Okay, I'll copy this, come over to the translator app, delete this extra icon we have, and paste it here. Delete this guy and bring it back here. So let's actually make this into a proper group. So this is a group. We don't need the rectangle. Where is this? The avatar should go inside this group. There you go. Now let's create an auto layout for this. And let's double check to see if it did the right thing. Nope. So this auto layout is going to have this expanded view with avatar over here. Let's try this to see if it's working. That's much more better. And let's make the let's fix the margin so it's 5, and let's make this maybe 6 is fine, I think. Okay, and let's double check background white. There are extra colors here. I'll just make it white. Actually, I'll come over here, make the fill white as well, and the stroke to be black. The stroke of the circle, actually, ellipse. So this ellipse will have a stroke of black. Same with this one. If I select the ellipse, we'll have a stroke of black. Let's check. Okay, there you go. That looks much better. And now let's create the component out of this. Let's see before we do anything, any changes we need to make. No, this is good. Let's create a component out of this, and let's create a variant. So we're going to create 4 variants, and let me increase the size so we need more space here. First variant is mode. The variant name, I'm going to say logged out, and this one is going to say logged in. And the logged in version will have an avatar that's logged in. Okay, and both of these will have 2 extra views. So let me duplicate this, move it over here, and duplicate this, and move it over here. I might need more real space. I might need more space here. So let me move this over here and move the avatar maybe somewhere here. There you go. Okay, so the top one is the logged out version, right? So when we logged out and we want to show the pop-up to allow user to log in. And that's this card that we want to show, this login card. So I'll copy this. I'll bring it over here. And this mode logged in. And I'll paste it here. And you can see it messes up because this is a auto layout. It messes up the whole layout. So there's a button here. You can see absolute positioning. With the login card selected, click on this absolute positioning. And you can see that now it fixes things. And let's move these 2 further down. And this, I'm going to absolute position it like so. All right. And in fact, I don't have much space here. So let me increase the size of this component. And increase the size of frame. Move it over here. And do it like so. So this variation, this mode that has this value in here as well, I'm actually going to move this under this mode 3, but I'll make it absolute. And I'll try to move it, but you see, once you start moving it, it automatically moves out. That's a problem. So I need to make sure that it is moving within the frame. So I'll use the keyboard like this to position this so it doesn't move outside of the mode 3 variant. Okay, so here's mode 3. And I'll name this logged out show logged out menu. So it's not too large. Okay, we're going to do the same with this. This is called logged in menu. And once you're logged in, we want to show the logout button. So I'll just copy this, move over here, select this logged in menu, paste it inside, and click on this absolute positioning and use the keyboard to move this, because if I don't move the keyboard, it will move it outside of this variant component. Okay, there you go. This is close enough. All right, we can test this out, but before doing that, let's create the interactions. So let's go to prototype. Let's come over here. So if user clicks on this avatar here, we're gonna switch it with this. And this, you can see on tap, change to this. This is what we need. And once you click on any of these, come back over here, change to logged out. Except if you log in, right? We'll come back to the login part. That's fine. Now, if we are already logged in and we click the avatar, click here, move over here. And if we click anywhere else here, or actually, let's make a change. Let's go back to the avatar, and on clicking the avatar again, switch it over here. I'll come back to there and delete this. So upon clicking the same avatar, come back to the original one. Okay, great. Let's give this a try. I'm going to copy one of these instances, come to our sandbox here, and paste the menu bar. Let's increase the frame size so we can see the full thing. And I'll create two versions. And I'll make this logged in. And our sandbox is too small, so let me move this over here. All right, let's click on play. Let's see what's going on. So if I click on, well, the size is not right for some reason. That's fine. Let's come over here and click on this menu. You can see the login is shown. Very nice. And same with logout, we can see the logout. So we are done with our components, and we'll come back in and fix the rest here in the next video. This is already too long, but you can see there's quite a lot of prep time. We spent almost an hour, more than an hour, prepping all of these. But with this prep done, you kind of just, it's like basically you're doing development. You're focusing on low level components. You're creating these components, and then you'll start reusing your components in like a high level. So mentally, you're placing, you're shifting your basically viewpoint from looking at low level details. In development, you come in and do much more work here just to handle the inputs. We're kind of doing the same thing. And then the high level now, once we start using it, you'll notice maybe your low level components are missing some attributes or some specific properties. Then you'll come back and modify these. However, because we're reusing most of these, we're just moving them around, it reduces the work quite a lot and would allow us to focus on the app flow and logic much more better. All right, with this done, I'll see you in the next video.